You've met lots of victims of Agent Orange over the years. Tell me a little bit about Dong Nai and the two sisters in Dong Nai.
Yes, well, this was a very...
I heard it was, a very emotional story for you.
This was rather it is a tragic situation for a number of reasons. It's the first time I've seen the mother and the two daughters, and they can do nothing, absolutely nothing for themselves. They are just laying on the bed. And one is 42 years old.
Wow.
The other one is 35, 36. And the mother has to do everything, but everything, for the two daughters.
It's very difficult.
And this is a most tragic case because it just shows you the extent of the victims. And we remember you have nearly or just over 4 million here in Vietnam.
You know, it's heart-wrenching when you see these cases. Where do you find hope? How do you find hope?
Well, it's the fact that actually seeing them, you know, you can see photographs, you can see them on film. But when you see them in the flesh, you know, and you see, like, an instance of last year when I was in Hoa Binh, a young boy, about 9 years old, crawling along the ground on the wall of the hospital, and he came to the bottom of my trousers, and he clambered up, you know, and of course he couldn't do it by himself, so I picked him up, right? And he put his arms around and rested his head on my shoulder, sort of thing. Now there was the boy who couldn't speak, couldn't move except crawl along the floor. Now, all you can give to that child is the love and affection that any mother or father can do.
During his most recent stay in Vietnam, Len Aldis also met with a special victim of Agent Orange, Lee Van Chin. And this boy, basically 10 years ago, dreamt of receiving artificial limbs. And this dream came true. So let's take a look at this next clip.
Every time Len comes to Hanoi, he tries to visit the Peace Village, where more than 100 children with disabilities, mostly Agent Orange victims, are being cared for. Lee Van Chien is someone Len has stayed in touch with for years. He still remembers clearly the day they first met.
Well, it's been about 10 or 11 years since I first saw him, actually here, sitting in a wheelchair, with two brothers either side, and with him no legs between his right knee and half a stump on his left.
The image of the boy, who was then 9 years old, sitting in the wheelchair and dreaming of artificial limbs, stuck in Len's mind and urged him to do something about. He then asked the Vietnam Red Cross to use part of the money donated by him and other well-wishers in the UK to help the boy realize his dream.
Đến bây giờ thì đôi chân già mà ông Len tặng thì em vẫn giữ là kỷ niệm, và hiện tại em vẫn đang để ở nhà, không bỏ đi. Cái sự ý nghĩa mà ông giúp cho em thì em cảm thấy rất là cảm động, tại vì từ đợt đấy em mới vào cũng không có chân để đi đâu ạ, thì phải đi xe lăn, thì em cũng ao ước là một mình có thể tự ứng lên đi được. Và khi ông vào, ông thấy em cái ước nguyện của em như thế, và ông nhìn thấy em như thế thì ông rất là thương em. Ông ấy đã tặng tài trợ cho em một đôi chân. Ông mong muốn rằng là em có thể là đi được và sau này tự phục vụ bản thân đi lại. Nói chung là em rất là cảm động và cảm ơn ông ấy rất nhiều.
It's been 2 years since Len last saw Chien. Every time they meet, Len can't help but thinking about the youngster's future.
I'm delighted, to see him again. And I try, to think, say 10 years hence, what his life will be. Then he'll be 29, working, I hope. If he continues his study, he'll have a good job, perhaps a place of his own, and who knows, maybe even be married with children.
For Chien, he always has a very simple but really sincere wish for his long-time old friend.
@gmail.com. Okay, good.
Nhìn thấy ông khỏe, vẫn còn khỏe mạnh. Mặc dù đầu thì cũng đã nhiều tóc trắng hơn trước rồi. Nhưng mà nhìn thấy ông khỏe mạnh này em cũng rất là vui và mong cho ông ấy công việc cũng như sức khỏe của ông ấy sẽ càng ngày càng tốt lên.
Now, Len, I want to hear about the very beginning, when you started being an advocate and fighting for justice for the victims of Agent Orange. How did it come about? How did you get interested in this? And how hard was the struggle at the beginning?
Before I came to my first visit in '89, I had already read and seen the photographs of the victims of Agent Orange on our television and in our newspapers. And so, again, they're horrific by themselves. And when you realize then, of course, the war was still going on, and this was the legacy that was left by the government of America and also the chemical companies. So what do we do? Right? So I made my first visit in 1989. And I then went down and saw Viet Duc and the other children. And I became more determined and even angrier. One had to do something. You just cannot see these children
and do nothing.
And then walk back and forget about them, sort of thing.
So you were profoundly touched.
Indeed. It stays in my mind. Even today, I can recall my first visit vividly. And my other visits in the various provinces that I've managed to get to and seen, the victims in their homes, the schools, the clinics, the hospitals, and peace villages, sort of thing. You cannot ignore them. You cannot forget them. And so when I go back, I speak to my supporters, I speak to students at university, tell them and show them films about the victims, to see what we can do. So we've been having various campaigns, writing letters, deputations to the American Embassy. All this involves people and try to encourage them to get others to be aware of the situation that's going on in Vietnam.